I should I share the full story because I shared it on our show too as well. I was leaving a relationship, and she was in a relationship, leaving that relationship. That's partly why she shot down all my advances. So I was ready to be single again. Yeah, so that's kind of what it was. So she shot down all my advances that night, and that's why she only gave me her email, because she didn't want me to have her phone number at that point in time. So that could tell you, and I say this to everybody else: when you get over like 27 to 30 years old, and if you're not, most relationships start messy. Once you get past 30 years old, you kind of like go along through life and like fall in and out of like randomness. So it started messy, like, but then we ended great. That's truth.
Mm. I mean, the reason why I was asking is because I was intrigued, by the setup, and something that's really interesting as well. What you're saying, right? Because I think people like yourself who are an irresistible force, let me call it that, right? Where you go for something, you get what you want. I have some boys who are similar to yourself, right? Who are, I call them irresistible forces, right? They're completely different. When they approach, they hit, they get. And whenever they end up in relationships, it's often with a girl that said no to them.
Yeah, that will happen. Like most of them. Yeah, but I'm not going to lie and say that I was irresistible force. I'll tell any man, it's about the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I say 3 out of 10. I like, hey, 3 out of 10. You only need 3 out of 10. You approach 10 women, you might get 3 phone numbers. It's like playing baseball, right? Because if you play baseball and you just get on base, they pay you $5 million a year. So I tell any guy that it's 3 out of 10. If you get a phone number, hey, you made the first base. That's you good to go. Just keep approaching until you find the one for you. It is, and you actually have to make it to home plate with all women. I definitely did not do that. I would never tell that lie. I had my share, but I can guarantee you, out of all the women that I approached, it was nowhere near the number that actually came home with me. And I approached a lot.
That's why I said irresistible force, because you approached a lot. A lot of men wouldn't approach a lot.
No. I tell all men, you need to approach. You need to practice. Not, and I say this, not to actually have sex, but to know how to actually have a conversation with a woman. Yeah, you got to know how to treat them like human. You can't just go around a beautiful lady and just clam up. You got to have that suave, and the only way you get that suave is just by having conversations, and natural conversations to where you don't actually try to get anything out of her. Yeah. So because I'm in sales now, I still do that. I just walk up and have a conversation. Partly reason is the main thing. My first thing is, man, I'm a big guy and I stutter. So I got to constantly be talking to people to make sure that I go inside the shell, make sure that I don't go in that shell. So I'm always talking to people just to make sure that I stay open and out. So I do that I do it that way just to make sure that I'm always engaging people. Yeah. Always engage people. And I think a lot of men miss, if you actually engage with no intentions, you'll get somewhere.
Just to clarify, when you say no intentions, when you approached your wife, was there no intentions? Because you said booty, small waist.
There was some intentions there. Yeah? No, what I mean is, like, just like my day-to-day process, just like I might just go talk to a girl with no intentions. But it's going to be it's going to be somebody pretty. It could be somebody ugly. I just talk to people. I'm just always talking to people with no intentions at all. Yeah, just having random fun conversations.
I respect that. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for sharing that. Sorry, David, I cut you off, and then I'll let the ladies jump in now because they will have. I'm sure they have opinions as well.
Nah, bro, just carry on. I'm enjoying this
conversation. Yo, it's good when we get some men on this panel and they have different thoughts, man. It's interesting. So yeah,
it's interesting. Shout out to you, bro. Carry on. We already left the initial conversation, so I don't know where to come in again. So just carry on.
I appreciate it. Thanks. All right. Sorry, Doctor, you said you wanted to add something. Go for it.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Life Worth Living. I really appreciate you sharing your truth, because your truth is not going to be well received when amongst people who are talking about marriage and things of that nature. It can feel abrasive, but it's a truth, and I'm very grateful that you came up here and just share. And you are certainly entertaining, honey. You had me over here rolling. I was like, oh my God. And the reason why you had me rolling is because 90% of the men, young or older, that I grew up with were exactly like you.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't
It
know
was a
right now.
bad thing for me. It was a bad thing for me, right? I'm not, and you're not a. I don't dislike you. I find you very entertaining, and I find you do have a magnetic spirit. I understand why people had a magnetism towards you at, just the conversational thing. Not It's not so much about who gonna get what, whatever, but you're a good conversationalist, so I get that. And but the majority, when it comes to as being a woman, and at one time a young woman, I'm not a young woman anymore. I am a seasoned woman now. Men like you who were, or young men like you who were being trained by men like you when you were wild. And I'm not speaking on the men that you are now, because it sounds like you've grown and you've announced your evolution. But you also admitted that you was wild. You was out here in these streets, honey. You was out here because you was talking on some Iceberg Slim. Okay, you was.
Now, that's a whole different game.
That's a whole different thing. But you was
Yeah,
at the
that's a whole different
tip.
game.
You was at the tip. But you know what I'm talking about though.
No, I was nowhere near that tip of that game.
But you know what I'm talking about though. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're
Okay?
talking about. Yeah, but that's some game right there. The guys that can pull that off are definitely gamers.
But what I'm saying is, you might not have been at Iceberg Slim pimp level, four stallions in the stable. You might not have been on that, but you was chasing and you was recruiting and you was getting numbers. You was on your Salesforce IG out here pulling.
Salesforce IG?
Man, you already know. Okay? You was pulling numbers like you was out here like Time Warner Cable, Comcast, all that. And that's the type of energy that I had to battle as a young woman, as even a child. Where I live, it's one of the highest teen pregnancy rates per capita in the state. Where I live, the human trafficking is astronomical because of the